So I'd like to introduce the final panel for today, and this is really focused on WorkTech, so HR technology and its role in work today. Each company that will be represented on this panel is part of the talent ecosystem, from the first touch with a candidate to employee experience and engagement, all the way through the data end of it. So how are we measuring and making data-driven decisions? Our moderator is a good friend of mine, Alan Bourne, and the director at Fairmount Partners. So if the panel could please join me on stage. And Alan, thanks so much.
All right. So speaking of tying things together, I think we'll probably talk about a lot of what we had heard earlier. I think when we think about technology, I think the idea is how does technology make things easier for HR? How does technology help to build organizations? How does technology help to scale the people who are responsible for building organizations? And all the folks up here have a hand in that and have a role to play in that. So maybe what we could do is to kick off, if you could each introduce yourself and talk about who you are, what your company does. I think that's probably a good way to get started. So I want to start with Jess.
You've all heard me talk a lot today. But just briefly again, I'm Jess Podgajny, co-founder and CEO of LLUNA. We're a technology platform that makes it easy for companies to really personalize the employee experience. We're all about helping to meet people where they are and offer flexibility and choice that helps to attract, retain, and engage talent for the long term.
Hey there, I'm Tyler Reinhard from SkillSurvey. Putting a little bow on what we do to a room of recruiters. If you're looking to hire faster, we can help. If you're looking for better data about your candidates, we can help. And ultimately, if you're looking to check in with them post-hire, we can help as well. Looking forward to chatting with everyone today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon Morales. I'm the founder and CEO of Tribaja, your modern-day work tribe. We're a talent marketplace and community that connects under-supported talent to tech and startup careers. So our goal is really to partner with intentional brands, cities, as well as training providers to build those on-ramps to tech careers for those who have been traditionally left out of the conversation. So I'm excited to be here.
Hey everyone, Bruce Marable, co-founder and CEO of Employee Cycle. You all know HR spreadsheet sucks. None of you likes to deal with them. All of you hate them. They're tedious, they're time-consuming, and they're manual. But we all know that HR reporting is super important. And so instead of using those crappy spreadsheets, we have an HR analytics dashboard that has pre-built integrations to all the most popular HR systems you have, HRIS, ATS, engagement, performance, you name it. We automatically bring in all that data into one place. If you are interested, we have a booth outside. We would love to talk to you and can't wait to hopefully say something smart to all of you that you remember today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Danielle Dibner. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Phenom. I know you heard a little bit about us earlier, but we are an AI-driven platform that is really helping the recruiter, employee, manager, as well as candidate have decisions that are made on automation as well as personalization. So the first time that we touch you is when you join the career site, all the way through your experience.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is remote work. And, you probably all saw maybe not everybody, but Elon Musk announced, I think it was last week, that everybody needs to come back to work, minimum of 40 hours, and if you don't like it, find a new job, is basically what he said as far as Tesla is concerned. Obviously, we've been in an environment where it's been for the most part remote, at least in professional settings. But the first question that I had for the panel is thoughts on that and thoughts on the future of the physical environment. And Shannon, I know you wrote a blog post on this, so let's start with you.
Yeah, so it's funny because I recently wrote a post on LinkedIn that kind of went viral talking about how employers who are asking for employees to come back full-time, into the office is out of touch with culture. because there's a lot of employees who feel like they can be productive, in a remote work environment. Actually, Indeed did a survey on it, and 70% of employees feel like they are more productive being remote work. Me being a mom, a single mom at that, with 3 daughters, there's no way that I want to go back into the office. And so for that, I think employers just need to be more in touch with the culture of how it's shifted, and then make sure that they're also taking into account how employees feel most confident in their abilities to produce the best work. And that ultimately is going to be able to, be better for the company in general.
Great. One of the I think the big challenges, so just speaking about us, Fairmount Partners, so we're investment bankers, we're a professional services firm, and the way that we have, the way we operate is we've got junior staff, and we grind them up, and it's the truth. So if any of you have family that wants to be investment bankers, it's hard, right? It's really hard work. But I bring this up because there's something culturally pretty cool about being a junior banker in an investment banking firm, and I'm sure that lots of other professional organizations go through this. But what we experienced is that when you're working really hard in a physical setting, there's camaraderie that develops. There's shared experience and shared workload. And you're if you're there till 2:00 in the morning, you're ordering dinner together, and you are playing music and doing all sorts of things that build and foster teamwork and creativity and relationships. So the question that I have for Jess, we'll start with you, is in a remote environment, how do you build camaraderie and relationships?
I think what's really interesting, before I kind of answer that exact question, what's really interesting, and we're seeing it in our own user data, is that what people say they want in terms of, how frequently they want to be in the office or how frequently they want to be working remotely changes over time. So there's some level of even seasonality to it, where in the summertime, people would really like to compress their work week to 4 days or four 9-hour days and 1 half day and have those extended weekends. Whereas in the wintertime, there's less of a desire to have the long weekend. So there's seasonality into what people's workplace preferences are. And then in the winter as well, you're experiencing maybe snowstorms and other things where people are okay, let's just stay put. So I think thinking differently about how to approach the workplace is really important, and that there could be more of this kind of high level view of, all right, how do we want people to engage with the workplace? What's going to make sense where we could maybe flex a little bit, even if it's during one season or certain seasons that might be slower times for organizations to really reimagine how the workplace gets utilized over the arc of the year, and not look at it as the answer for every day. And I think employees really appreciate that perspective, and also feel like they're getting some more control back in the way that they're able to engage with the workplace. So I'll kind of leave it there for now, Alan, but I think it's a fluid beast, so to speak, and we've got a lot of reimagining to do here.
Yep, thank you. Tyler, to you, how do you see, SkillSurvey, but also your clients, how are they, one of the big things I think that we're missing out on is this mentorship. And when you talk about, we'll talk about retention, but we had a crop of 6 analysts who started at or around COVID. We've lost 4 of them, right? And I think part of it was this camaraderie piece, but I think also part of it is that there's just not, there hadn't, at least with us, and we're like a case study of everything to do wrong. But with us, there's a challenge around mentorship. Tyler, how do you all see that?
Yeah, I think a big part of mentorship comes down to company culture. That's something that we measure. So earlier, making sure I get my names right here, but Dan mentioned He Yen, I think it was, who was working at Cigna, and one of your throwaway, I have notes, I'm not that locked in. But one of the things that you mentioned was people don't want to work. And I bet as recruiters, you probably see that day in, day out. But if you can measure the right soft skills to get people that do want to work, then the culture builds on itself. Then the mentorship comes from there. I just think that if you have the right people on the bus, so to speak, the rest of it it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. And instead of trying to create a culture from scratch, you can do it just by having the right people who build upon the foundation that you have.
Great, thank you. So here's an interesting question, again, about remote work, and this is sort of the physical work environment. So I'm curious if, and I didn't prepare you guys for this question, I just thought of it. So I'm curious, when we think about physical space and physical environment, right? We have been out of the office since the beginning because they've been doing construction on our building. And we have the ability to reimagine how we use space, right? And the old way was cubes in the middle, office windows on the outside, right? I'm curious as to how you all envision, all right, if you could start from scratch, how would we think about space in a way to foster teamwork and camaraderie and scalability, but also flexibility? So I'm looking at you, Danielle.
Yeah, actually, we got the chance to redo our office because we had a flood. So great question for us. We actually learned a lot with this. People don't want to just sit at a desk anymore because they were sitting on their couches or potentially, unfortunately, in their beds. And with that being said, we actually converted our floors. So our main floor now has desks. So our standing desks, you can stand, you can sit. There's places for people to eat lunch together. But then as you move to the other floors of the offices, there's couches. There's conference spaces for you to get your teams together. You know, we have lanterns that you can kind of carry around with you and stand in different areas or go outside and still be able to work and charge your computer or any technology that you need.
Great.
Can I jump?
Yeah, please jump in, Jess.
So one thing that we're seeing is it's all about intentionality. So people want to go into the office for specific reasons, and two of the big ones that we see emerging are around like collaboration. So I need to go for a meeting with a team. I want to get into the same room and brainstorm, or kind of the formats of discussion that lend themselves to more in-person forums. The other is there are some people who maybe have been working out of tiny city apartments, or maybe have a whole lot of cats and kids running around in their background, and they want to come to the office for quiet space. They actually they might want a desk, but it's creating the permission for people to come in for those different reasons. So I recommend asking people, why do you want to come into the office? And maybe there's a couple of reasons that each person has, but then, curating that office experience around it. The other thing that I'll say, and I think a lot of companies are having success with, when you have like an event that's happening at the office, it might be just like a 15-minute coffee chat with a senior leader, or maybe it's the free lunch on Fridays or something. If you have a specific reason like that's memorable for people to come into the space, that will get them there, and that's what they're going to talk about when they go home at night and tell their family what happened at work. So creating those memorable moments, they don't have to be big and extravagant. I think Google was bringing in like celebrity concert musician guests and whatnot. It doesn't have to be that, but I think that those types of moments create the connections that people are looking for. And there is a blend. People want to connect in the office, and then they want to be at home, recharge, do the heads down work, or in the coffee shop, wherever they're working best. And so that's really what we're seeing, is this immersion of, it is hybrid. It is also very personalized to individuals. And as I mentioned earlier, it changes over time for every person. person, whether it's seasonal or kind of life circumstances, et cetera. So there's a lot of complexity in it, but it's possible to distill it down to create workspaces that are attractive to come into, while you also have the balance of where else can I get my work done where I feel at my best.
Right. I buy everything off of Instagram, and I do. And I ran across this Instagram ad, and I'm a sucker for Instagram ads, of this espresso digital display. It's like a 15-inch digital display. It doesn't require a power source. You just plug it right into my laptop, and now I can run 2 displays on my patio. And it's the coolest thing in the world. You can, if you want to talk to me about it later, we can do that. And I'm not a paid
affiliate
endorser.
links will be provided.
I'm not. But let's talk about talent acquisition, and we talked about young people. There's a generation of talent that's been raised digitally, digital natives, right? And so how are we, and are we using technology to reach that new talent, the young talent that has never known anything but an iPhone? Danielle, let me kick that one to you.
Absolutely, I think that's a great one. I think a lot of it is about personalization. People want to feel like you are targeting them and not multiple people who may have 1 or 2 similarities to them. So I know we talked about, video job descriptions. We've talked about how do you engage with a candidate through their means of communication. Is it a chatbot that's on 24/7 and is acting as your recruiter? To say, hey, does this company even have the benefits that I need and I'm interested in? To SMS, these candidates, as you mentioned, are on their iPhones, and emails. I think it's all about that personalization approach to attracting the right candidate and then engaging with them through the process.
Thanks. Bruce, what role does data play in talent acquisition and new ways of reaching out to talent? How do you think about that from a data perspective and utilizing data to be more effective?
Sure. And before I answer, it was so funny looking at all these HR leaders when you said we have people working at 2 a.m. Like, I thought.
Like, right on, that's what I did.
Right. They were like, wait, hold on. Do you have an HR person there? But when it comes to data and talent acquisition, there's a ton of things that we're seeing, which I'm sure you all are dealing with. One of the things that we find most talent acquisition people aren't really looking at is looking at the acceptance rate. And what we're finding is that not only is it what is the acceptance rate, but why people aren't accepting. And we know that it's really, really hard to be able to get that data, but any inkling of that data to understand who are you competing against? Because, for instance, I have a friend, he has a startup, he had an engineer that they were paying $250. They got poached actually they didn't take that, their engineer was taken by Pepsi that paid them $475, right? Then I have another HR leader that we were talking to, they're in Tampa, and they were trying to hire an engineer at $125, and then Amazon just looked at that and was like, what, $125, what is that? Boom, $275, because they just couldn't compete. And so what we're seeing is it comp? Is it culture? Is it remote flexibility? Is it perks? Do they want unlimited gym memberships? Do they want a free Peloton? Do they want lunch? I'm not saying that you have to do those things, but you have to understand why aren't people taking the job? There's a lot of metrics that we could talk about, like conversion rates and DEI and all these other things, but today, in this Game of Thrones economy where people are just poaching everyone from everybody else, that acceptance rate we're finding is the most important thing for talent acquisition people to look at, because to see, just like customers, if you're putting a product out there, because your job is a product, you're putting this product out there, how many people are saying they're interested in that product, and then how many people actually buy that product? And if you're finding that less and less people are buying your product, you need to understand what is it about your product that's either outdated or it can't compete with the other products out there, because you might not have any idea that all of a sudden, all of the people from tech were then, like all the tech companies were stealing engineers from big banks, and now a lot of the big banks are stealing engineers back because people are saying, you know what? All these layoffs in tech, I can't deal with it. I'm gonna just go to some big company. I don't really care if I have to work hard, but they're gonna pay me a ton of money and I get to get off at 5 o'clock. And so truly understanding why people are turning down your jobs, to me, I think right now is the most important thing you could be looking at from a data standpoint when it comes to talent acquisition.
That's awesome. Shannon, one of the things that people are starting to hear more about is talent communities and building talent communities as a look. There's a ton of job openings. Retention's a problem. Talent acquisition is a problem, and these talent communities are a way to pull together a ready talent pool that companies can tap into. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the evolution of talent communities and how to manage talent communities and how your clients are using communities?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the great things about having a talent community like Tribaja is the fact that you can ask these questions, just like Bruce was saying. Some of our employers come in and they survey candidates immediately to understand or just get, a pulse on like, what are they looking for? If it's a company, a large enterprise, they say, what did you think about, what do you think about this company? What do you want to see here? Do you believe that this is a place that you would want to work? We also ask our community what their preferences are. So you can gauge, like if we have a 7,000 member community right now, you can gauge 60% of them are saying, we want remote work only. Or what are you looking for in your next career move? Are you looking for salary and benefits? Are you looking for career advancement, mentorship? So these are things we survey our community immediately. And I think that gives employers a better sense of like, this is what's happening right now. This is where the candidate market is driving decisions. And they just need to be more open to being willing to make those changes. So I think that with talent communities, you really have that ability to be able to survey candidates immediately and have those insights that you might not have had, before.
Thank you. Tyler, on the front end, you guys, one of the things that you all do at SkillSurvey is reference checking. Can you talk a little bit about how that's evolving?
Yeah, if you think about it, a lot of what we heard today was measuring hard skills and how that's kind of going by the wayside, and now we're looking at soft skills. So the way we break it down at SkillSurvey is professionalism, people skills, problem solving, and personal values. And regardless of the job you're in, those things matter. Some more or less. Maybe a programmer doesn't need to have the best people skills, but they need to have the best problem solving skills. And if you as a recruiter could get the data that says this person's better than 92% of other programmers in this scenario at problem solving, that's a feather in your cap as a recruiter to say this person's going to be a fit. It doesn't necessarily need to be the hard skills, but the soft skills. And then kind of spinning it forward to sourcing talent, the diversity of thought we were talking about in the last panel, good people know other good people, and a lot of the soft skills, if you think about your friend group, you guys probably have similar values. So identifying the person from a reference check, sure. Check the box, do it faster, do it with data, but then leverage that reference to become the next candidate. It's just like the hand feeding the mouth, and the circle of life continues from there.
Great, thank you. Let's move to retention. There was a comment that earlier, I think on the last panel, that people don't quit their jobs, they quit their boss, which is true. Danielle, what do you all see in terms of the key ways to improve retention at the customers that you all work with?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we are seeing right now to improve retention is having an employee experience. We think very much about the candidate experience and tend to really disregard that employee experience. So with that being said, we've talked about ERGs, but it's the maintenance of the ERGs. It's promoting your employees to own those groups. It's not on us as leaders, it's on our team members. We need to give them more training. We need to give them those networking opportunities. We talked about people who have maybe never been in an office. We're all tired of Zoom meetings, we know that. But how are we allowing these people to connect and in their parameters?
Great.
I just wanted to add to that. Speaking of the employee experience, I can't stress enough the way that we find the best HR and talent acquisition or people ops, whatever you identify yourself as retaining employees and creating this experience is really looking at it as a product. We find that regardless of what industry you're in, could be transportation, tech, medical device, whatever you're doing, we find that companies do an amazing job putting customer success to figure out, let's cohort our customers, let's figure out who's staying, who's not staying, why they're not staying, what are the most important things that they need, and then you dump all that feedback back into the product and you figure out how to make that product better. But we're finding that HR and talent acquisition professionals are not doing that same thing, figuring out stay interviews. Why are people staying? How many people do a stay interview? Raise your hands. Okay, so stay interviews. Have to do the stay interview. Why are you staying? People are going to be surprised. Why am I here? You know what? Let me think, why the hell am I still working here? I don't know. And you don't know either by the show of hands here. We do, as tech people, we do stay interviews all the time. We do ENPS. Why do you like our product? No, really, why do you like our product? Not because we have great customer support. No, why do you like our product? What problem do we solve? And so if you understand that from an employee standpoint, what problem do we solve in your life? Outside of just needing money, what do we solve? Oh, well, we provide flexibility because you have kids or you have an older parent or you're someone, oh, great, that's what you like. Okay, check, that's part of our product. Oh, you like us because we allow you to travel and do a whole bunch of interesting things, work across different industries, work with people internationally, whatever the things are in your business, understand what are those things, because then, similar to a product, you'll be able to take that and then promote that to new customers, because that's what we do with tech. We take that in and we say, okay, this is why customers really like us. Let's promote this to other customers because they have the same persona, and that will allow you to attract people like them, so that when you bring in people, you're bringing in people who are going to appreciate that same product versus bringing in people who really don't align with your product, but on the surface they thought they did, and then they start using your work product, and then they leave because there was no alignment there in the first place.
That's interesting. Jess, what role do benefits play? Because you guys have a really unique angle on benefits. How do you think about utilizing benefits as a means to foster retention?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think the definition of benefits is expanding. So flexible work is a benefit. It's no longer just your medical, dental, vision, some voluntary benefits thrown in there. Thinking about kind of the total package as the benefits is really the way that we look at it. And I would even just take that a step further and say the benefits, that experience of working at the company, it really is that total employee experience. So looking at everything from what are your policies around family leave and elder care and PTO and, of course, mental health support, wellness, well-being in general. But then also, how are you seeking to understand what really motivates your people? So what gives them meaning at work? Why are they actually there? Are they there because they want to earn a paycheck and go home and provide for their family? Are they there because they want to learn a new skill? So thinking about benefits in this like kind of broader lens and not pigeonholing it, I think is the way we need to start to embrace that employee experience overall, to look at the whole person and also recognize that people are changing and evolving. So what they need today might be different in 6 months or a year from now, and we've got to create systems and process to be able to support that changing evolution and growth that employees are seeing so that we keep up with them and that we do retain them in the organization. On one of the panels earlier was the conversation or the comment about when you walk into an interview and the panel is all white men, and that's not, I think you said it, and you're like, oh, okay, like I see what this is going to be like when I join the organization. Retention is so important right now because we need to maintain diversity in our teams to be able to have the recruiting process work the way that it should. We need our panels to be diverse, which means we need diverse employees. We need our employee population to be diverse. So we've got to focus on that retention in the lens of all of the benefits you can offer. And sometimes that just means taking your current narrative or story that you're sharing and flipping it around. What is most important to people? And understand, maybe ask a couple of questions from a candidate first. What's most important to them? And then highlight those things, what your organization can do for them first. Like, it's not, salary is important. People are opportunistic right now. They're making leaps because they can. But at the end of the day, people want to join companies for the work that they can do, the culture, the values of the organization. They want to feel really good about where they're working. And we can help them embrace that part of the story, even if we can't win on salary every time.
Thank you. Tyler, from your perspective, what else, what do you hear from the employee side that are issues that are impacting retention, and what can employers do to address those issues?
Yeah, I kind of think of it as like the person at the bar theory. If you don't ask the question, you'll never know how it's going to turn out. So part of it, whether it's benefits, like just saying, or just kind of generally like Bruce was saying, the important part is to get the data, and in order to do that, you need to ask the question. But if you don't act on the data, then it's worthless. So asking the question is a really good first step. Acting on it is vital. And if you solve the talent management side by finding out what's important to people, you're then solving the talent acquisition problem because you're keeping people on the bus to begin with. So talent management reduces the stress on talent acquisition, and it all starts by asking the people that you work with.
Just real quick, Tyler, sorry, I want to say, acting on it doesn't always mean you have to do what people are asking for. Sometimes it just means communicating, hey, this was a great idea, we can't do it right now, but it's something we're going to consider and continue to evaluate. But communicating that it wasn't just dismissed altogether is the important thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something and just allow everyone here, especially those who are HR leaders and recruiters, to kind of push back on leadership and say, hiring might not be the best thing for us to do right now. Maybe we need to focus more on our actual employees that we have here, so building more retention strategies. Do we have a strong foundation right now to be able to bring in more professionals, or are we struggling? And if you're struggling, the first thing shouldn't be to hire more people. It should really be to fix the infrastructure that you have right now.
Great. And I want to be mindful of time. So let's wrap with predictions. So 2030 is 8 short years away. And so my question for each of you is, what does the workplace look like in 2030? And Danielle, let's start with you.
You asked this in the prep, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this. 8 years from now, I think we really have to focus on the data like we've been talking a lot about. I think it's all about remote. It's all about the personalization, because I may want to be remote. You may want to go back to an office once or twice a week. We have to have that flexibility. And I think the key to all of this is personalization in benefits and what a person needs to support them in their life today and potentially in 6, 9, and 12 months.
Great, thanks. Bruce?
Selfishly, I want it to be about the data. So hopefully everybody cares about data in 10, 15, 20 years, because we'd have a great company. But I think as HR loves to continue to change names from admin to HR to people ops, I think by then it's going to have to be something like employee strategy. And I think it's going to have to come in from a pure strategic standpoint of, let's think about all of the business first and then figure out how does the workforce fit into that, versus a lot of the times thinking about we just need to hire people, but not necessarily having it totally align to the business. So I think the same way that you might bring in a person ahead of corp dev or strategy thinking about how to buy all these different companies, I think there's going to have to be some role. And HR, I think, somewhat does it now, but really figuring out not only how do we support all of these departments, but how does HR really push all of the agenda of the entire company so that culture flows through everything that's happening. DEI flows through everything that's happening. And hopefully HR is really driving it, because who's tired of every CEO saying that employees are his greatest assets, yet you keep treating employees like shit? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. And so my goal is, and hopefully the collective goal here is for HR to really drive the company where it's not looked at as HR. It's just looked at as strategy, but it's the person that's looking from an employee perspective.
Great. Shannon?
Yeah, I think we need to give power to more culture curators within the organization. And what that means is basically, like Bruce was saying, is that we have customer success professionals that help with the client experience. We need to have culture curators directly in the, the business who are driving the employee experience and making it better, all the way from engagement to creating personalized employee guides to understand, if you were to move internally, where would you want to go? Having that information earlier as opposed to always waiting later, I think that will increase the candidate experience. And I think, as we can all see right now, is that the market is driven by the candidates. And so we need to do a better job of listening and just implementing things earlier as opposed to later, because 8 years, like you said, is not that far away. And so we just need to do a better job of listening.
Great.
It's kind of scary to think 2030 is not that far away. I guess naturally we're here talking about WorkTech, so we're going to talk about data and information, which is something all of us have brought up so far. But spinning it forward, I think about like Moneyball, Oakland Athletics baseball strategy, also a great film with Brad Pitt, so everyone should check that out. But what they did was they found little advantages that made big differences. Tim from Peloton was talking about removing work experience requirements or education requirements to find a niche advantage there, or at least expanding talent pools and not eliminating people. So if we can find other such advantages or open up opportunities for others, I think that everyone can be more efficient and effective, but all starts with the data and not filtering people out before they even begin.
I think we've heard about a lot about like personalization. Danielle, you alluded to this, and I think in 8 years, work will be hyper personalized. I also think we're going to move towards more modular jobs, almost thinking more gig-like inside of organizations. People may want to work 9 months out of the year instead of 12 months out of the year. People may want to work 80% schedules, or think of our boomers that are aging out of the workforce. How could we retain that talent by giving them the opportunity to maybe work 60% schedules as they're sort of phasing into retirement, but keep that mentorship and talent in the organization longer? So I think personalization, getting more modular, a lot more fluid. I think the pace of change is going to only increase, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of your comfort that is. But yeah, I think we'll continue changing, continue evolving, but very personalized.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate the panel. Really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you all for joining us.